when I heard these stories, both from Josh and then from John Skinner, and then the two other individual rescuers, where they cannot deny that there was a miracle occurring or miracles occurring in their experience. That to me is a conversation that I think we've not had in a long time in public discourse. When we hear of miracles reported on the news, it was fascinating to me to watch the news footage from this event. And we've got Channel 4 and Channel 5 and then the National Inside Edition all saying, like, telling this story about it's a miracle has occurred, a miracle has occurred. And I don't think we get that anymore. It's more there's skepticism and even mockery when we talk about miracles. And so, yes, I would love for this to reignite the conversation that miracles are happening.
It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall, and I'm excited to welcome back in Garrett Batty. Now, what a lot of people probably know about Garrett is a filmmaker, a producer, director, an actor of sorts as well. But what they don't know, and what you're going to have to check out the video either on Patreon or on YouTube to be able to see, huge fan of Nickelback in the way that he dresses with his necklace and with his t-shirt. Great to have you in Cultural Hall, Garrett.
Is this not the dress code? I thought this was a Nickelback dress code.
Yeah. Well, I just glad to be on the glad you're here. The necklace. I have to know about the necklace because that's what's giving me Nickelback vibes.
I'm going to tell you what this is. I've been on podcast after podcast after podcast. This is a wireless microphone that it's good. So the magnet just puts me right there, and I don't know. Hopefully you can hear me better.
Yeah, you sound great. You sound great.
It is kind of goofy looking.
Well, here's the deal. Nickelback, millions upon millions of records sold. So if it helps with getting movies, you'll take it. I have that.
Is that better? Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you fine. Now I feel bad that you're being self-conscious about it. It just did seem. It seemed a little emblematic and a little out of sorts for the Garrett that I've known for now 20 years, which is what I was reflecting before we got on this.
It's been a minute, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How we met through improv comedy.
Yeah. 19, maybe 20 years ago. I mean, if we want to put it in your wheelhouse, you look at LDS film in the last 20 years. It has come from, can we have LDS film too? Yes, we love LDS film too. LDS film too. It's a new kind of LDS film too. It's sort of an LDS film, but we don't want to call it an LDS film too. Hollywood's doing LDS films too. Perhaps what we're talking about today.
I think I've been on a lot of those episodes through those phases that you've just described.
Yeah, I mean, certainly ones that people would probably know you most for. Saratov Approach, I think,
yes,
would probably be maybe most notable. Are there others that you point to the outfield and you go, that was the one?
No, I think you're right. I think Saratov Approach is definitely the one that people first connected with as far as what I've created, and yeah, that still gets brought up. In fact, there's a new trailer out for a movie called. I don't know if we need to mention it on this podcast, but you already have Heretic.
Sure.
About sister missionaries that are kidnapped or trapped or something like that. And in the trades, the trades that are talking about Heretic, they're mentioning Hollywood continues to do this. They did this 10 years ago with Saratov Approach, and now Heretic. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't know if that's entirely accurate, but I'll take credit for that feeling like a Hollywood movie.
Well, and complimentary that they remember you, because so much of it is I'm glad you even knew,
Yeah, right. We'll take it.
But to that point in that movie, and that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not talking about the past.
Sorry.
It's
Yeah,
the present and the future.
But
But it is curious to note that for many people, the Saratov Approach was the first film where Hollywood went, oh, millions. Way to go, filmmakers in the LDS Church.
Yes, again, but that goodwill is all but gone, and now we're just being lumped in there with Heretic.
Yeah. It is interesting to note, and you probably know this being in that scene, not in the movie scene, but in the trades scene. I'm told that both of the sister missionaries that are in Heretic are, in fact, members of the church. I know for sure one of them is. I don't know about the second one.
I did read that, and I haven't done my research on it to confirm it or deny it, but I did read it and thought that was an interesting note.
Yeah. Yeah. I like you are very careful in the way you want to speak about other people's projects. So let's speak about you for a minute. As you look back in the last 20 years, I sort of jokingly gave the landscape of what film has been like. What has your journey been like as you've not only directed and produced, but you have been helping with distribution. You certainly speak and teach and, help people along the path. What have you seen the journey has been since, yay, those early days of God's Army and Singles Ward?
Uh, as you've described, it's been up and down. I mean, I think that those were wonderful. We've had some wonderful phases of successes and respectable films come out. It's ebbed and flowed a little bit. There's been some droughts. There's been some misses. I'm guilty of each of those
Hmm.
periods, and but very grateful for it. There are a few filmmakers that are kind of that were with it from the early on days that are still, we still get to see TC Christensen creating content, and Go Films is doing some incredible work. And I think we get, hopefully, we get better and better as we go, and we're learning how to get our stories told and expand our audience. And
So
that's
for
ultimately our goal.
So for you, I think that there certainly we can point to some within the last 20 years who have said it's so much work and the financial payoff isn't there, so they find themselves sort of venturing into other things. And it's not like they leave the church or anything like that, but they go, listen, you can make X in church or church related films, and I can make Y over here. So why wouldn't I go and do that? What has sort of kept you within the space that you're working in?
Probably fear. Uh,
Is that real?
well, no, I mean, it's certainly, I am drawn to this type of content. I love faith-based film. I love independent film. I'm probably a little bit of a control freak and want to make sure that if I'm going to tell a story, I want my voice heard, and I get to do that on a level where I can, keep the vision that I have started with, and keep it through the entire process of writing, directing, and creating and releasing a film. I don't know that would be able to do that on a larger scale. I've done some bigger budget films through different studio or financing, and they have yet to be released. And so
Hmm.
that's heartbreaking when I see passionate about a story and take it and involve other larger organizations, and then those films are delayed or changed or whatever it is. And so this is a very comfortable space. It might be a comfort zone for me. I don't know. Maybe if I worked up the courage, I could start pitching to bigger studios or raise more money. But right now, it's a comfortable space.
Well, and others I think would argue and say, you know what, you are uniquely skilled where others couldn't walk into your space. So, recognizing the talents and skills and abilities that God has given you specifically, not only to be a filmmaker and a storyteller, but to be a filmmaker of faith. Not everyone is that. And so it's not always that we need to aspire to be this other thing. It can very much be like God made you, Garrett, for how you are to do the things that you're doing. It's not a fear based, but more of a skill or calling based type thing.
Sure. Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I certainly feel that without with absolutely the same level of respect for guys like McLean Nelson that have done an incredible job in this space, but also have gone on to create film after film after film for Hallmark or other independent movies. His wife does some incredible comedy movies, and then you've got guys like Jared Hess that dabbled in early Latter-day Saint film as like a assistant for the RM and Singles Ward, and then certainly did Napoleon Dynamite, and now has gone on to just do incredible work. So no, no, yeah, I think you follow where you want to go, and uh, I admire anybody who can continue to make films regardless of the genre or audience.
Yeah, tremendous amount of work. The other thing that's interesting about our unique time, I promise we're talking about the faith of angels. We'll get there. I promise you. You're like, what is this interview? I
So,
thought we were. We'll get there. I promise.
I love it. I love it.
But it is a unique time in which we're speaking. The church, that is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and whether I don't think it was from the first presidency necessarily, but there was a statement that was released fairly recently talking about the sensationalism of members of the church. And, a lot of people have, in sort of hushed tone, said, this is in reference to Heretic. It's in reference to the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, an upcoming Hulu series, and others. I think it certainly could be pointed to other things that were on HBO and other things in the past, or things that may be in workshop to come out in the future. How do you work to, because I think when we hear sensationalized, we think of these sort of fringy things that there's no way that could be within the church, right? Speaking specifically, the Hulu one, the Real Lives of Mormon Swingers, or whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
I think that it's easy also, though, for people of faith to sensationalize the faith part of it, a heavy-handed, miraculous, sensationalized story of what was otherwise just like a simple story of faith. How do you kind of protect yourself from doing that?
It's a good question, and I mean, I obviously approach this content from the perspective of a believer,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the content might be, the offensive, Secret Lives or Heretic. And for those that can't see, I'm doing quote marks because I haven't seen this content yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I approach it from a believer, and ultimately, as a writer and a storyteller, I think the truth is what interests me, the truth of these experiences. And so to sensationalize, hey, this is what, Latter-day Saint women are doing behind doors, it would be, I would want to avoid that just as much. I'd want to avoid, this is a, cue the strings and bring on the miraculous music and you're going to feel something. And I mean, ultimately, if I can stay in the lane of truth, this is what occurred specifically with Faith of Angels. Here's a, is it okay if I talk about that movie now?
Yeah, of course. I was gonna clear the table and set it to what we can do. Let's go for it. Tell me.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, Rich, anything with the Faith of Angels where we say, hey, these are the true events that occurred according to these individuals that experienced them. And my job is to represent them and help connect the dots and make them interesting and relevant to an audience today. But to sensationalize that would be a misstep, just if I were doing it even in the other direction.
Yeah, I'm chomping at the bit too to talk about the film. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to find out how you learned about this story and then subsequently went, you know what? Not only a great story, let's make a movie about it. Let's come back and do that in the second block of the Cultural Hall.
Imagine running a small business today. It's challenging. Imaging and internet presence is an absolute must. Even with that, you're still a small star in a bright cyber universe. Now, imagine you have someone who understands how to get your site designed for your talents and then easily searched by potential clients. Imagine Lennon Design. Whether it's strictly a website or a whole package of logo creation, advertising media, and promotional materials, Lennon Design is your partner in business. They'll test the boundaries of their imagination to create something unique for you. When you need creative, affordable design, let it be Lennon Design. Call 801-699-3022 or visit LennonDesign.com.
Here in the second block of the Cultural Hall, remember you can always email us, contact@theculturalhall.com. If you don't think that Garrett's necklace / microphone looks at all like it's from Nickelback, you could send us an email and be like, come on, he's your guest, taking time out of his life. Why are you heckling him? Or if you think I'm spot on, you could send that email as well, contact@theculturalhall.com.
I love the heckles. I love it.
I love hearing the genesis part of filmmakers that go, I heard this story, this is how I decided to do it. So take me back to when you were just a younger filmmaker and you got the story. Yep.
Wee lad. So how much time do we have? How many blocks are in the Cultural Hall?
There's 3 like we used to do for church, but now we've been around for so long, we haven't been able to figure out how we do just 2 blocks within the Cultural Hall. That's how long we've been doing this here. So
okay, all right, well, good. Okay, I just want to know how far back to go.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as coming across this story, I get pitched stories, or people reach out to me frequently, probably weekly, with different books or ideas or stories. And my role as a filmmaker right now is sometimes to determine, they're all great stories. I
Sure.
have to determine if it's good for a family dinner table or a nationwide theatrical audience.
Mhm.
And this one stood out to me. I was approached by some producing friends. They produced the Book of Mormon series for the church, and they said, "Hey, there was an extra on set, and she came up and pitched this idea or told us this story
Mhm.
of Joshua Dennis, this young boy that was lost in an abandoned mine." She said, "Would you consider making it a feature film?" They don't do that. They reached out to me. It sounded very interesting to me, and what caught my attention was that she mentioned that angels, that there were angels kind of involved or felt throughout this, and I'm drawn to those types of stories. So I reached out. We had a great meeting, and I heard the story of this young boy that was lost in an abandoned mine. He was comforted, wasn't scared at all. We saw some news reports that he wasn't scared at all. He was for 5 days lost in this mine and comforted by angels. Uh, I was drawn to that, and then I was drawn to this element of an individual that is a stranger to this story, stranger to this group of, stranger to this young boy, who 500 miles away, and he's telling me his version of the story completely different from the boy that's lost in the mine. 500 miles away, John Skinner, our hero, wakes up in the middle of the night with this prompting, this angelic prompting
Mhm.
to get into his truck and drive to Utah. And to be able to go, okay, here's a little miracle that's occurring inside this mine, and then here's a miracle that's occurring 500 miles away in this man's life, and those are somehow connected. And then talking to more and more and more people who were involved with this story and seeing these little angelic promptings that were connecting all these, seemingly individual people, but bringing them together to create meaning in their lives. That to me was like that. This is a story that has to be told, and so further than just the dinner table.
Mhm.
And so at that point, I said, "This is worth spending the next 2 years of my life creating this content, creating this
Two
film."
years?
It's been almost 2 years. We started writing the script. You know the process. I mean, you write the script, and then you get it all done, and then you raise the money for it. That takes a long time. And then we filmed last September 2023. So now we're releasing the film 2024. So yeah, it'll be 2 years by the time this hits the screen.
And I know for some that's actually pretty short. I just wanted to do the exasperated 2 years because
Two
there are
years?
there are some films 5, 10, 20 years in the making because of one thing or another, funding or the edited or the studio puts it off or whatever the thing may be. It's like, when did this actually take place? And
The
where?
the the story occurred. The event occurred in 1989, up in the mountains of Ophir, Utah, which is where we filmed.
Hmm.
Um, and it actually the event took place September 22nd through 27th, and that is when we're releasing the film nationwide. We're releasing it September 13th in Utah,
Mhm.
but then nationwide on the 35-year anniversary of this occurring, this film will hit the theaters.
That's pretty significant. It also tells me that many of the people that are involved in this depicted in the film, you were able to speak with personally and be able to hear their personal accounts. Tell me about some of those experiences.
Yeah, again, the goal is for me. I, I'm drawn to these authentic stories, and so there's no sense in like writing or creating a fabricated miracle if that exists. And so the more I spoke with the Joshua Dennis family, who's the family of the young boy that was missing, and getting their accounts and hearing their dialogue and then putting it into the film, that was a goal of mine. And then John Skinner is the individual that felt compelled and almost called and drawn to search for this young boy, and to hear his experience. In fact, we hadn't reached out to John, but I was location scouting, just kind of getting an idea of where we might be able to film this. We drove up the canyon to Ophir Mines and started looking around. And Ophir's this little tiny town of 37 people, and we stood out. Me and my son were snooping around a little bit, and they said, "Hey, somebody came out. What are you doing here?" And we said, "Well, we're looking we want to tell this story about a young boy that's lost in a mine,
Mhm.
and we're thinking about finding different places to film. And this individual says, "Oh, you know who you should talk to? You should talk to John Skinner. He just lives in that house right there." And
Jeez.
John Skinner's the individual that found the kid, or
Yeah.
yeah. And so everything just kind of continued to fall into place. Little miracles throughout even making the film. Um, we needed a wardrobe. We wanted to match the 1989 coat that the boy was wearing. Well, turns out his mom kept the coat. It's the actual coat in the film that the boy was wearing. And same with the jumpsuit that the rescuers were wearing, or the helmet. These are these are the helmets. You'll see in the movie, and this is not a spoiler, you see John Finley in a moment of frustration or self-doubt. He finds this little angel statue in the ground, and it gives him sort of re-strengthens his resolve to continue working, or just kind of this little wink of like, hey, we're with you on this journey. John Skinner actually found this angel, and he showed it to us, and we replicated it. It's the exact shape and form that he found. These little gold nuggets that John finds in the very beginning of the movie. Those are John showed me those nuggets, and those are depicted in the film. And one more, there's a mustard seed element throughout this. The faith of a mustard seed that Joshua, the young boy, teaches at a family home evening lesson. Those are the exact mustard seeds. Like the mom kept the bag of mustard seeds. So everything is authentic. We had the Dennis family on set with us, and as we were filming, the Dennis family would say, "Wait a second, we said those words. Like that's exactly what we said." We was like, "Well, that's why we interview and then write what's interviewed." And fortunately, it all comes together to create a very real experience for the audience.
In a question that may be a spoiler, but I would suppose is not, based on some of the verbiage that you've used, I assume that you were also able to talk to the boy himself, who is now a man.
Oh,
Yeah.
Rich, now we know. Yes. So Joshua Dennis, and it is fun. It's not a spoiler. I mean, the thing happened 35 years ago.
Well, and I remember it being a Utah resident. I remember this going on. I can remember, the community coming together and praying for this kid.
Yeah. And I think what's cool is, even though many know the outcome of the movie, that doesn't stop us from enjoying the story. And like sometimes the experience is what drives us. That's why we watch a football game again, or watch a movie a second time. So it's a good storytelling will trump what is the outcome. At any rate, your question is, yes, we spoke with Joshua Dennis. He is he's stake president in Taylorsville and works full-time as a graphic designer for the church. And just an incredible, humble, just very, very humble, and just wants to make sure that this movie is a celebration of the heroes that worked for him. It's never, ever been about him. But he was on set with us, very supportive of the movie. And he's a personal hero of mine.
Some people will ask about films like this. Is it, and I sort of alluded to it in my history of Mormon film earlier, this is a film of faith that could be applied to anyone with faith, or are there Mormon nods or Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saint nods? Give me an idea on what that might feel like.
Well, I can tell you that, I mean, I probably have blind spots, making a faith-based film. It's obviously going to come from my experience with faith. However, when we sent the script out for actors to audition, or we sent the script out to offer actors, we're not asking, John Michael Finley, who stars in I Can Only Imagine, is the lead in this movie. He is not a member of any particular church, but he immediately resonated with the story. Said, "This is a story I want to be part of." And then again, we have Cameron Arnett, who starred. His movie opens this weekend right now, called The Forge, and he stars in the Kendrick brother movies and lots of evangelical and kind of Southern Baptist movies. Are they Southern Baptist? I'm not sure, but at any rate, very, very much Latter-day Saint movies. And he read the script and said, "I want to be a part of this story." We are opening on our very first booking. that just, tickets just went on sale. The movie doesn't even open for another month from recording this, is in Minnesota. So the movie itself, while it maybe is about a young Latter-day Saint family, I mean, visually and in the movie, there's no intentional Latter-day Saint twist. That would be no different from a regular faith-based film.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
I think people really like that. And I think when we sort of strong-armed our way into being like, this should be a way to introduce people to the church, I think we missed the mark. I think being able to have stories of faith that occur from among us, and then sharing those, I think that is super powerful. Maybe in a way that, if we went very on the nose, it feels more like a missionary tract or like an instructional thing that we're trying to do. I do have to say, though, if you are an LDS person, you will appreciate that you see Jason Wade and Kirby Hayborn, who, as far as I'm concerned, there cannot be an LDS film ever made that the two of them do not show up in one point. If there were drinking games for LDS people, it would be take a shot every time you saw either Jason Wade or Kirby Hayborn, and both great friends of mine.
Well, yeah, likewise, and I've enjoyed making films with both of those, both Jason and Kirby, in the past, and to be able to reach out and say, "Hey, do you guys want to play for another week in this world?" Was a joy. I was so glad that they were available and
Well,
came
and
and
it's not
shared their talent.
just them. It's a lot of the same crew. Is there an element of like, guys, we're getting the band back together and we're playing this song of faith, and everyone just goes, Garrett, I trust you. Let's go.
I'd like to say there is. I don't, I don't ever want to presume that they would say, yeah, of course, whatever you want. So with each project, Jason and I have done, we did Out of Liberty together, and now this, and Kirby and I did Scout Camp together, and then we'll do comedy together anytime he'll allow me. But with each project, it's a respectful approach and say, here's a story I'm working on, here's a script. Would you consider reading for this? And I'm grateful when they say yes.
So, it comes out. Certainly, I would imagine it will get significant attention from just the anniversary aspect of it as well, and the fact that it's being released alongside that, and so many people remember. I haven't thought about it very much in the 35 years since it happened, but I can distinctly remember that, and I imagine that there will be other people in that same situation. Do you feel like it'll be, or is it your hope that it'll be sort of a call to remember this great miracle and allow people to kind of think back on how God maybe has interacted in their lives? Is it, hey, I want to tell a great story, and this seemed like a great story? Like, if you had one thing that you had to say, this is the why behind this. Why are we doing this?
I think, yeah, that's a good question, and this could be like where you get into like the spiritual nature of this. For me, when I heard these stories, both from Josh and then from John Skinner, and then the two other individual rescuers, where they cannot deny that there was a miracle occurring or miracles occurring in their experience. That to me is a conversation that I think we've not had in a long time in public discourse. When we hear of miracles reported on the news, it was fascinating to me to watch the news footage from this event. And we've got Channel 4 and Channel 5, and then the National Inside Edition, all saying, like, telling this story about it's a miracle has occurred, a miracle has occurred. And I don't think we get that anymore. It's more there's skepticism and even mockery when we talk about miracles. And so, yes, I would love for this to reignite the conversation that miracles are happening. Whether there's a metaphor in the film about stars, and hopefully it's not heavy-handed. Hopefully it comes out. But some people look at the stars and they don't, they're just stars. And others look at them and they connect the dots and they see constellations, and it gives meaning. And I think I would love to ignite this conversation that there is meaning in all of these little events that occur in our lives that lead to greater miracles.
Yeah, I like that. I I like that it's going to be added into the conversation at a time when this world is a dumpster fire. To have something, I mean, my words, not yours, I understand, but where it just seems like so much of conversation is just not positive, let alone faithful or like hopeful or anything like that. It just seems like so much of what is being spoken about is it's the end of the world, Garrett, and it's your party's problem. You did this. No, it's not mine. It's you. You guys are. And to be able to have this horrible incident that occurred, but that had a positive outcome, and then be able to discuss it as a way of faith. I think it's significant, as you indicated. Minnesota, right? That's not the Jello Belt. That's
Yeah.
someone else saying we love stories of faith. Tell me, and we stress this as much as we can, the importance of if people want more stuff like this, how they need to interact with stuff like this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you set that up perfectly, and it is obviously seeing and supporting this media, and it's always a little bit self-serving as a filmmaker, one that's selling the media or at least promoting, my own projects. But I think it goes without saying that, the reason that perhaps the content that's created, like Heretic or whatever it is that sensationalizes these things, is because it draws an audience and it's an easy kind of low-hanging fruit audience. And I think that there's a big audience out there for faith-based content. And so supporting that on opening weekend in the theaters, wherever it's being provided to you, is important. We've seen an uptick. We've seen an incredible uptick with faith-based content from, depending on how your level, your qualification of faith-based content, everything from Sound of Freedom to Chosen, to Ordinary Angels and God's Not Dead, and The Forge comes out this weekend. So, and I think that a lot of theater owners and independent media buyers are seeing that there is an audience, and I'm so grateful for that. That's wonderful. We need to keep doing that and keep it up, and then share it. Add our voices to the conversation. There is a conversation, a vibrant conversation about faith and miracles, and we should not shy away from adding our voice to that. Say, I saw this story, or in my own life, I've experienced this. That's equally important.
Yeah, people for whatever reason, I don't know that everyone understands how the theater business works. They look at it and they go, opening weekend, how many seats did we sell to this particular showing? And if they go, great, that's a value, we'll continue to hang on to this film. That's how they determine. So when the film is in the theater for like a week and that's it, it's because it didn't get the kickback that it is. It is a business for these people. I feel like most people probably know it, but maybe don't stop to think about it. I have made this suggestion, and some people hate this, but here goes. If you're one of these people that's like, I can't, I'm so possibly too busy, that particular weekend is a thing, buy a ticket. And even if you don't go and you're like, oh, blasphemy, go to the film. Yes, I want you to go to the film for sure. But if you can't, for whatever reason, you should still buy a ticket and be able to support this, so that then maybe it could be, if that weekend is someone's getting married or your kid's traveling with a sport thing or something, buy the ticket so that it can show, hey, we want this. No one's really that busy. I just like to give people that little bit of a pass where they can be like, listen, I have a guilty conscience. What can I do? Do
Yes.
that, but go see the film, for crying out
I,
loud.
I love that. I love that. It's like, yeah, you don't have to go to it. Just buy the ticket,
Yeah.
please. That would help faith-based film. We're doing something similar. We've seen these pay it forward campaigns, or you like the movie, you scroll it, you scan the QR code, and you buy a ticket for other people. Your mode would be perfect for that. You can, for this film, you can buy a ticket, and then later go to our website and say, I'm ready for my ticket now. I'm ready for my free ticket, and
Mhm.
there you go. So you make an impact on that opening weekend, and then you can see the movie the next weekend or so, whenever you're
And
less busy.
and you can tell people, hey, you know what? I heard this great interview about this film that's coming out. We should go see it, or young groups or families or whatever. Like, that's one of the things that I know and can trust about what you do. There's not going to be something that I'm going to go, I should not have gone to this with my, with my family, with my youth group, with my anything like that. There may be some things that cause me to think, but I'm not, you are a person whom I can trust, that I go, yep, I know that I am going to be taken care of in that respect if I go to see a Garrett Batty film.
You're in safe hands, and I'll give you let me I'll give you a story on that. We put the film up for a ratings. You have to rate the film, and we want this is a PG movie, and for dramatic elements, and the ratings board came back and said, okay, excuse me, not PG-13, PG for dramatic elements. You've got a child in danger, that's kind of scary, and for language. And we said, wait a second, for language, like there's no language, there's no swears.
How many fricks did you drop, Garrett? How many fricks
we
are
didn't
there?
drop any fricks or anything. And so I went back and honestly, I said, in my mind, I'm thinking, when I see a little ratings card and I see language, I'm at least I'm guarded, right? I'm like, oh, do I want to take my family? What am I like in a PG movie? And so I reached out and said, hey, what's going on? Like, we really intentionally had no language in here. Is there something that was maybe misheard? What's happening? And they said we'll take off your language, warning, but one of your characters, I don't know if you're Tanner Gilman, who's this wonderful like Studio C incredible improviser. Tanner Gilman plays one of the early rescuers in the movie, and I guess there was a scene where he's walking, and under his breath, he says, "I freaking hate the dark." And they said, that's the language. And so, to make sure we're all safe, we muted that line. So Tanner now just says, "Hate the dark."
Yeah. Watch your mouth, Tanner Gelman. You almost gave him a
life.
language. Yeah, you're PG. Think celestial, Tanner Gelman.
I love Tanner, and I love him in this movie, and audiences will as well. It's been fun to watch him in these early screenings because people are he brings this levity to a very heavy story, and he has such a great approach to it.
I think that's great to know that it's like, well, he did say friggin' hate the dark.
Like, well, it wasn't in the script. That's Tanner.
Well, that's so very much the behavior we expect from Tanner and why we love him. Let's take a break. There are 3 questions we ask everyone who steps into the Cultural Hall. I will ask those plus a couple other publicity things. We'll come back and do that in the third block. BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the Cultural Hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJinUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJinUtah.com. Here in the third block of the Cultural Hall, remember you can become a Patreon saint. Go to patreon.com/the Cultural Hall, where as little as $5 a month, you get to be a part of the secret but not sacred Facebook group where everyone that's a Patreon saint is hanging out. We have tangential conversations that have oftentimes nothing to do with the episodes that we share, but things that people wanted to talk about, like, oh, I went to Ophir once, and the sign that says, oh, for heaven's sakes, that welcomes you into the town. Things like that. So you can find us patreon.com/the Cultural Hall. So tell me, website, all the things that if people want to go buy a ticket, give me all that technical jargon. That'll be in the show notes, of course, but give it to me here.
Yeah, it's we try to make it as complicated as possible. faith-of-angels.com. You can go there and buy tickets, see behind the scenes of the movie, and then share it with others. And then we're all on the social media, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, I think, Faith of Angels.
Now, is it faith-of-angels on the socials, or is it all just Faith of Angels?
It's all just Faith of Angels. So okay. we try to confuse everybody all at the same time.
So then my mind immediately goes, and if we need to end up taking this out, what's at faithofangels.com that we couldn't?
A price tag. Nothing is there. Just a great big old price tag.
Yeah. So you're like the Faith of Angels on the Faith of Angels. It's
Yeah.
like what I do when I try and buy domains where I'm like, what can I do to make this last?
Faithofangels.movie. I don't know. We just said, look, there's usually people are going to see a link and click on it rather than type it out. So
Mhm.
that's kind of where we're going with that. But faith-of-angels.com will get you all the info on the movie
And
and
do it.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't make us boss you again. What I know you're right in the height of this, and people like you hate questions like this, but people like me love asking questions like this. The dust settles on this. It becomes a major motion picture that's shown over the world for the next year. What's the next project that you're tinkering around with?
So in theaters, November 1st is a movie called The Carpenter that I wrote, directed, and produced. So I'm not taking any breaks. We released this September, November 1st, The Carpenter. We shot it before Faith of Angels. This is a fight movie. This is like Risen meets Rocky.
Hmm.
Kind of a fun historical fiction about a fighter that is in Nazareth and he meets a mysterious carpenter, changes his life.
Okay.
So we'll need to do an episode on that if you'll allow us.
1,000%, but that seems like that's PG-13 maybe for violence.
It's very much PG-13. I mean, I don't very much PG-13.
It is very much. It
It's so
friggin' is afraid of-
PG-13, right on the edge.
No, it is PG-13 for violence, lots of fighting and action and really fun. No language, no fricks or anything like that in Nazareth, but very both spiritual and action filled.
I hope that sometime I'm able to see a byline for that film that says no fricks in Nazareth, because that would just please my heart. And
I
then
would sell it.
if you could, even if it's just for me, I would love it if you had a small little video capture of Tanner Gelman saying, I friggin' love this movie, talking about Faith of Angels. That would just make my heart so happy, especially with the little behind the scenes as to what almost happened because of his friggin' mouth. We ask everyone the same three questions. I'll ask you. I've asked them of you before, but I'll ask them again because oftentimes answers change. The first question is, do you have a calling right now? And if so, what is it?
I do. I am an executive secretary in our ward.
That seems like a lot of time for a person like you.
Keeps me so busy, and I love it. It helps me get organized in every aspect of my life.
Okay.
And we have a great bishop, Rick, and great ward.
If you could pick a calling for yourself, either one that exists or make one up, what would you pick?
I think I've answered the same previously. It would be like a public affairs missionary. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it'll come.
Not that we aspire for callings, but my goodness, when I used to work for the church and we went over to Samoa on a shoot and they said, reach out to the public affairs missionary. I had no idea that calling even existed. And these guys took us everywhere and did exactly what I wanted to do. I loved it.
Yeah, do it. Come on.
Okay.
Come on, the folks at 50 State Street or Center or whatever it is in downtown Salt Lake, call him.
North Temple. Let's go.
North Temple. Let's let him get a couple more movies out and then let's call him. Let's get him.
I wouldn't be able to say yes at this point just because I think it's a pay your own way type calling. And go see the movie so you can allow me to do that.
Yeah, if you want him to have his calling, that's great. I friggin' love that.
No, you can't say friggin'.
Language. The last question we ask everyone, we ask you to interpret it however you may, but the question remains, what is your favorite part of your faith?
My favorite part of my faith, and again, not to change the tone too much. Hopefully, this interview is aligned with this tone, but is my relationship with Jesus Christ. The ability that I have to repent and partake of the atonement each day, each week through the sacrament, and draw closer to He who is perfect, who I rely on so much. My faith brings me closer to Him, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. I appreciate your words. Faith hyphen or dash, you can call it either, of hyphen or dash angels.com. Get your tickets, even if you're not going, for crying out loud, but go. I mean, don't be that guy. But I mean, if you can't, then still buy one. But even if you can't, still go. Figure it out. Why is your life so busy? Priorities. Let's get it straight. It's Faith of Angels. Garrett, Batty, I appreciate you always being such a great guest, being willing to come on and have a good time, but also be able to share the spirit which you you lead and guide your life, and I think it's significant, the stories that you're telling and sharing with the faith at large. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you very much. Love being here.
Garrett, I hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body, that if you're not healthy enough to listen this week, that you'll be healthy enough to listen next week, and that when the time comes, you will be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Rick McGee, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger, with a U, will be saving a seat for you on the back row of the Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row. We really gotta go on the Cultural Hall show.